Hello, I'm Lord Jimsicle, and you're watching You Have Issues, a programme all about comics. I have enlisted the talents of Dan and Dale of the cleverly named Dan and Dale's Comic Book Show to review a very popular and important Marvel Comics event. The people of the Marvel Universe have had to put up with superheroes trashing public property and not being held accountable for their actions. In short, they've had enough of their shit. Of course, we are talking about Civil War.
I don't need your Civil War!
Hey, dude, what the f*** are you doing?
What? You said we were talking about Civil War?
Yeah, the Marvel comic event.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Alright, come on, let's do this.
Dude, no, I've already cleared this up. We're not doing that. We're doing the comic event.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
Written by Mark Miller and with art by Steve McNiven, Civil War is a 2007 crossover event that revolves around a superhuman registration act introduced in the wake of a mass explosion that killed hundreds of civilians caused by a battle between the New Warriors and a bunch of C-list villains, one of them being Nitro, who caused said explosion.
The Act requires all superheroes to register with the government, be trained by and work for S.H.I.E.L.D., which meant turning over their secret identities to them, effectively turning superheroes into civil servants operating under the same rules as the police and the military.
Public mistrust of superheroes, mutants and metahumans is nothing new in the Marvel Universe, but it's never quite reached this scale.
Hoping to boost public trust in superheroes, the Act proposed to have superheroes being held accountable for their actions such as property damage and minimising civilian casualties.
The Act is a good topic of debate, and the pro-registration side make a few valid points.
However, any logical debate that came out of this fell flat on its arse because Tony Stark and the rest of the pro-reg camp acted in such a way that would make the Gestapo squirm.
Of course, not everyone in spandex agrees with this law, as it proposes to strip them of one of their greatest freedoms, their anonymity. Captain America is a figurehead for the anti-registration faction, leading heroes such as Luke Cage and the Falcon, eventually calling themselves the Secret Avengers.
During this ordeal, characters like Spider-Man play a key role in the story. Under Iron Man's wing, he is convinced to reveal his identity to the public on live television, which was a big shock to the Marvel Universe, as well as comic fans everywhere. This change didn't last long, and it was the basis for the most controversial and hotly debated retcon, One More Day.
There is just not enough time in this episode to discuss that, put it that way. As previously mentioned, conflict between the heroes of the Marvel Universe is nothing new, but it's put into overdrive in this story and set a precedent for later stories. A notable example of this is in Secret Invasion, where the Skrull Empire disguises themselves as Earth's heroes and adds to the tension and mistrust amongst the hero community. In fact, Marvel love this formula so much they stopped being clever with story names hinting at heroic infighting and just outright states it in the title, an obvious example being Avengers vs X-Men.
Oh, they are not even trying anymore.
Another thing that really irritates me about this hero versus hero formula is that the villains frequently take a backseat role from the action.
Or maybe they're just so bloody polite that they wait for the heroes to sort out their differences so they can get back to killing everyone.
I hate to apply pedantic realism to superhero fiction, but after doing a bit of research, the Registration Act would have been thrown out of court. The Registration Act is passed, and merely days later, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents kick down doors of heroes who haven't been registered, arrest them, and detain them without a fair trial, which is of course completely unfair and illegal. The website lawandthemultiverse.com helpfully points out that a law does not go into force as soon as it is passed, and a future date has to be announced in order to prepare people to comply with this new law. An interesting thing to note is that way before the act is even passed, Captain America is discussing it on the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier with Commander Maria Hill, who makes it perfectly clear that she disapproves of superhero activity, along with pretty much everyone else in S.H.I.E.L.D. save Nick Fury. Hill manages to have Cap surrounded by agents with the intent of arresting him for merely showing verbal opposition towards a law that has not even been passed yet.
Okay, Jimsicle, before you go off on some weird tangent like you always do at the pub, where exactly are you going with this?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Chris will relay a fairly recent example that happened here in the United Kingdom.
When the ban on smoking in public places was proposed as early as 2004, it went through various debates and revisions until it was announced in November 2006, coming into effect on the 1st of June 2007, and even then it wasn't strictly enforced straight away. The point being here is that plenty of time was given in order to prepare people not to light up in public places after this date.
Imagine how that would be if this were announced and brought into force in the space of a week and suddenly being dragged out of the pub merely minutes after the act is passed.
Yeah, but Jimsicle, how boring would this comic be if it just focused on trying to get bills and laws passed and hearings and meetings between S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and senators and Republicans and Democrats? I mean, let's not forget the last time a beloved franchise went political.
Touche, old boy.
Having said that though, I think that this book's main problem is pacing. The main story is only 7 issues long, and while it plods along just fine for the majority of the time, the last issue seems to cram about 4 books into one.
Maybe pacing wouldn't have been such an issue if I'd read any of the tie-in books, but I just hate it when a company forces me to read a gazillion other books just to get a sense of fulfillment from my story.
Despite this, it's a solid read with a great amount of action, and it's still fondly remembered to this day. Again, something that really f***s me off is the dependence of heroic infighting in subsequent stories as a result of this one. This isn't a dig at the story, it's just lazy dependence from Marvel editorial.
As expected with a major event, the main series has an extensive amount of tie-ins, being collected in a whopping 24 trade paperbacks. But is it absolutely essential to read all the tie-ins?
Thankfully, no. The main series is still quite enjoyable, but if you do want to read a little further into it, then the only tie-ins I would recommend are Thunderbolts, Spider-Man, Iron Man and Captain America. The New Warriors and Wolverine tie-ins were average at best.
Actually, Jimsicle, we both really enjoyed Wolverine.
Yeah, we did!
The tie-ins depict how the Registration Act is affecting all of the other Marvel heroes, which is interesting, but I'd recommend sticking to the ones we named or pick up the trades of your favourite characters.
And ironically though, the Wolverine one is so good because it ignores all of that noise and just tells a really great story.
In the end, the Superhuman Registration Act was passed, which had huge repercussions in the Marvel Universe. Captain America surrendered and was shot and killed by Crossbones on the way to his trial. Spoiler much? Yeah, but this story concluded in 2007, and this part is common knowledge to anyone who reads comics, whether they've read Civil War or not. Plus, death is cheap in superhero comics, so of course he came back eventually. A year or so later in Secret Invasion, the Mighty Avengers, led by Iron Man, tried to arrest the New Avengers while they were investigating a ship crash in the Savage Land, which meant the Act was still in force. The Act remained law until the conclusion of 2010 story Siege, where Captain America was appointed head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and convinced the government to abolish the Act, making amends with Tony Stark and the other pro-Reg heroes in the process. And they all lived happily ever after, right?
Well, no, of course not. It's the superhero universe. Bad shit has to happen for more stories. It's how fiction works.
Interestingly, this story has appeared in other mediums as well.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 adapts the storyline rather accurately for the first half of the game, right up until it goes off into some weird shit storyline involving a cybernetic Nick Fury and everyone else in the Marvel Universe being infected by nanites.
That is such a derailment, even by normal comic book standards.
It was also adapted into an audiobook by the lovely chaps at Graphic Audio. It spans a very impressive 6 hours and features a full cast of voice actors, music and sound effects. Thank you for watching this episode of You Have Issues. I'm Lord Jimsicle.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Dale.
And please don't forget to check out Dan and Dale's comic book show. You can also follow them on Twitter. Links are in the description.